trouble. He will hear your faithful cry. He will answer by and by. When you feel a little prayer will turning, then you know a little fire is burning. You will find a little talk with Jesus makes it right. I was a wandering child. I wandered from the fold.
Whoop. So yeah, hello, good morning. For whatever reason, I'm a little especially foggy this morning. But, so it is. I want to talk this morning about one of the things that I think, that I was reading and thinking is just so wonderful, and lovely about, God's divine nature as revealed in Scripture. And that some stuff, too, that, like, I personally have had a lot of problems with, because it seems it's definitely, certainly, as Scripture talks about, very contrary to my nature. And so, but love it, and anytime I've been able to do it, and not run to sin, like I tend to do, like this weekend, bountiful blessings come out of it, you know? Sometimes it in and of itself can be a blessing, but then actual blessings can result in it, that, like, the Lord works in mysterious ways, but he works in those mysterious ways a lot of times that he already talked about, so they're really not that mysterious. They're only mysterious in that they really make no logical sense to the human mind. And here are some of these wildly human illogical, divinely perfect adages. And he kind of stuck some of them right by each other, which is very interesting. Anyway, still in Matthew. Let's go Matthew 5:38. And he's quoting from the Old Testament here as well, and something I'm sure you've all heard of in action movies, if nothing else, or revenge flicks. You have heard that it was said, an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. But I tell you not to resist an evil person. But whoever slaps you on your right cheek, turn the other to him also. If anyone wants to sue you and take away your tunic, let him have your cloak also. Now, there again, it's a little comedy of Jesus, I think. I don't know even back then that people were suing people strictly just for their garb. But, you know, he wants to sue me, take the clothes off my back. I assume they're having a little jokey joke there. Let him have your cloak also. And whoever compels you to go 1 mile, go with him 2. Give to him who asks you, and from him who wants to borrow from you, do not turn away. That's tough. That's tough. Like, that is a deep challenge, I think, to our ego, our own sense of right, and our own sense of, certainly, attachment to things. Certainly challenges mine, because I'm like, okay, you know, I can get part of that. Slaps me on my right cheek. Man, I want people to slap me on my cheek so then I can fight them. Like, that would be the whole thing. Okay, now I'm justified in fighting you and trying to hurt you really bad, which normally I can't do because I feel like a terrible person just attacking someone out of nowhere. To not resist an evil person. And if people want to take away your tunic, just give and give and give. Because you know what? All of this stuff is given by the grace of God. And you don't know why this wicked person is asking for it. You know what I mean? And I struggle with that. Every time a homeless person asks me for money, do you see that? That's gross. Every time a homeless person asks me for money, I don't necessarily give it. I do sometimes, sure. But a lot of times I'm like, man, I can tell you are cracked out. You're drunk as hell. You're just going to destroy your life more. I don't know really what to do about that. Here, can I buy you a sandwich? You want $1? I'll buy you a $5 sandwich. And you know, the few times I've actually done that, instead of just being like, oh, that's what I'd like to do, enormous blessings come out of that. Actually, the last time I did it at a farmer's market or whatever. End up sitting with the lady, praying with the lady, like, just having, like, a real kind of meaningful thing. And who knows if she was lying to me or not, but, like, that's kind of not the point. Like, we're called specifically here to behave a certain way, contrary to myself, and a very selfless, gorgeous, beautiful thing. And it's very contrary, too, I think, I've noticed, just to how people talk about Christians, And that's certainly because Christians are flawed human beings like myself, and then we act contrary to that which we are told. But their Christianity actually has nothing to do with it. I mean, Christianity tells them to do this, to give and give and give and love and love and love. So the sort of like hate, maybe sign-carrying, bile-spewing Christian types that people think of or whatever, who are trying to like shut things down for people. Even people doing that sort of thing should really be doing it out of a sense of love and trying to help. And a lot of, whatever. There are people who go out and protest things and talk about things and, again, do things contrary to our own understanding. And they do that in love. But anyway, I just thought that was a really interesting thing because it's very contrary to lots of, problems I've heard people have had with people like myself. He continues. He goes on to say, you have heard that it was said, you shall love your neighbor and hate your enemy. And I've read this one before, but I just love it. This right here, so let's read it. But I say to you, love your enemies, bless those who curse you, do good to those who hate you, and pray for those who spitefully use you and persecute you. And that goes all the way to the end thing, which I think is the last time I talked about this. Therefore you shall be perfect, just as your Father in heaven is perfect. And again, that perfection, God tells us, comes from not us, not our perfection, not our striving for perfection, and simply doing these things. Because a lot of these things, you're like reading them and you're like, okay, yeah, so I understand your intention, sir. Excellent. I don't believe it's all intention that Christ was talking about. He was talking literal specifics. And he was giving multiple specifics, like here's example, here's an example, here's an example. Literally go the extra mile. And sometimes that might be literal. That doesn't have to, like, the more I try to, certainly, take God's law, go, okay, yes, I get it. And then I go, okay, not my law, here's what I would say is just and right, and this seems fair, and how can this not be just? And then God says this, and I'm like, really? All right, I'll take God's law then. And I do God's law. And then I often have this tendency, and I don't know if other people suffer from the same problem. I'm assuming you do, because it seems to be very fit to human nature. Then I try to go, okay, God's law, that's what I'm going to do now. I'm going to leave my law alone. Goodbye, law. God's law, here's what God says to do. Well, what he really meant, I'm sure, was this, and again, intention, and it's about the state of heart, and make sure that you love people. It's just about loving in general and stuff, and just not always specific. It doesn't mean I have to do everything anybody asks me to do. But you know what? If it's not harmful to another person and it doesn't cause you to sin, honestly, I think it's exactly what he's saying. And you don't want to change this. This is God's law. So, the more I then... And I do that. I go, okay, God's law, and I put my own understanding on that and try to, shape it to modern mores or what, I've come to believe as a human being, or what even probably government or, societal, cultural mores and rules and laws probably even of this earth tend to enter into it. But ultimately, he left a good amount of leeway for that sort of thing. For where the laws of the land, rendered to Caesar, kind of do whatever, don't be a criminal, but here's what's dang important, and those things are some of the hardest things in the Bible to do. Just they're dang near impossible. There's been some times in my life when I've sort of been in that state, and I got so bitter because you know what? I tried to also. You can't do that stuff on your own. It's nigh on impossible. The Mother Teresas of the world or whatever who do these things and just do and do and do. And I've tried to do and do and do and do. And if I didn't do and do and do as an act of worship and as a joyful act of celebration of the debt I owe to my Creator, it fails, man. It's always fallen flat. It makes me anxious, makes me angry, makes me bitter, makes me feel used because I'm trying to do it through my own human means, my own human understanding. Through God's power, man, I can actually do that. I can actually live that. So, here's me trying to do that. But all praise to him for the aid. Much appreciated, God.